Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of On the Horizon. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got a whole crew today. Got, of course, Eric Collette. Eric, how's it going?
Very good. Very good. Hi, Andy.
I apologize to both you and Gabe for yet again having to pull the I got to go pick up my kids from school card. It's the reality of modern day hybrid work, I think.
Yeah, it is. I have to do the same. Not right now, though.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why we say adaptive protocols so you can pick up your kids and still be productive, right? Everybody wants to work while they're in line picking up the kids from school.
You know, that is actually a pretty good play on adaptive protocol.
It's not a very realistic one, I hope. Please don't work and drive.
No.
No, but workflows and needing to be able to work dynamically, which I think we'll probably talk about here in a few minutes. And also having something that tells you where you need to be when you need to be, that AKA my wife in this case. I don't think it's all that different. So that's the voice of Gabe Knuth. Gabe, how's it going?
Not bad. How you guys?
Good. Gabe, you have kids of various ages, right? You have some older ones and younger ones.
Yeah, 13, 11, and 15 months.
Whoa,
wow.
That's a big divide.
It sure is.
So you're all over the place when it comes to doing what activity comes next at any moment.
Yeah, well, and maybe obviously I'm familiar with the picking up the kids at school thing too, but honestly, we spend so many time at doctor's appointments now, right? Because every couple of months I feel like there's a doctor's appointment for the young one. And then you factor in all the other stuff. I mean, I can hardly think of a week or two period of time that's gone by where there hasn't been a doctor's office at some point. So
do you go to all of them at this point?
I try to, but there isn't one of those where I'm not sitting there with my phone, at least on Outlook. Like I'm never bringing my laptop or trying to work, but I'm still, trying to work with a desktop interactively, but I'm still trying to do things and keep up with what's up, what's going on.
So that type of enablement with technology to get your job done, are we in better shape or are we worse shape than we were before we had that?
I think that
Here's a quantifiable difference. Now, are we talking mental health or are we talking work
That's
balance?
where I was going, right? Because I think that just because you can doesn't mean you should, but it is very cool to be able to do that stuff wherever we need to. I think that some people take that and have taken it too far. And I mean, look, I've been working from home for the last, I can't do the math, 14 years. And so I have learned how to balance the work and life when they both happen in the same four walls. But I mean, especially when people first started working from home, like March of 2020 timeframe, when the laptop was on the kitchen table all day, every day, people didn't stop working. I mean, it was 16 hours a day. I was getting ding, ding, ding coming in for emails. And so it takes a long time you have this great power, right, of being able to work anywhere with any of your devices. You still have to be able to learn how to shut that stuff off.
It's the shoulds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now throw in being a owner of a small business on top of all that, where you're like, if I don't handle everything that happens when it happens, which I've given up on at this point, but there's this constant need to work all the time just to survive, whether it's true or not at this point is irrelevant. It's my biggest fear is I'm gonna look up 20 years from now and like where did it go?
Yeah, I'm a big believer, not that this is like the XenTegra philosophical podcast, but I'm a big believer that you get to be an expert at 5 things in life. And that's like, for me, it's husband, father, VMware employee, and then that leaves like 2 things, whatever that happens to be. That could be, 3D printer guy or whatever, custom pinball machine maker person. But I mean, there's 2 other things to play with because the other ones are kind of locked in. Andy, you've got, when you're a business owner, you're like an employee, but you're also business owner and then husband, father. So, business owner takes up one of those remaining ones. Yeah. Possibly 2, depending upon how many businesses you own and stuff like that.
Yeah, if my wife, if she was here, like, yeah, honey, listen to Gabe. I'm not sure you justified it, honestly, but yeah. You did.
When I feel overwhelmed, that's what I try to keep in mind. Like, am I trying to do 6 things? Because I don't get 6 things. I get 5 things. And yeah, it doesn't matter how awesome you think you are.
Yeah. And then some of us keep adding things like nonprofit, learning how to Earth, and you name it.
Rotating through hobbies for me is ridiculous. I have to rotate through hobbies to be interested in what are those one or two remaining things. And so I'm never going to be an expert. I'm going to be well informed, but I'm never going to be an expert in those.
And that's what they are for me. Yeah, the rotating hobby spots is all they are. Yeah,
makes sense.
So anyway, philosophical section over with.
So that's Gabe Canute. Gabe, your official title these days is what?
I'm a senior product line marketing manager at VMware. I'm an EUC lifer, and all day I spend thinking and talking and stuff about Horizon and Azure. So senior product line marketing manager is basically the fancy way of saying if Horizon and Azure intersect, I'm there. I'm here to talk about it.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize that. So Azure specifically.
Yeah. So the end user computing business unit at VMware is broken up into a lot of different things. There's Horizon and Workspace ONE, and then in each of those product lines, there's lots of different focuses. On the Workspace ONE side, there's security, and there's all the different platforms that supported Google and Apple and so on. In the Horizon side, there's Horizon proper, like Horizon 8, that would run on premises. There's Horizon Cloud. There are certain other capabilities like app volumes and DEM, things like that. And so while we all kind of know what's going on, we each have our areas that we focus on. And so my areas that I focus on are Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure. And now that Microsoft has their Azure VMware solution, which is like vSphere as a service from Azure as a Microsoft owned and operated service, you can run Horizon in the Azure VMware solution. And so I cover that as well.
Yeah. Well, does that consume some of your hobby slots? Is that because that seems pretty complex?
I try like heck to make it not. It used to, man. There was a time in my life where I would have just gotten done working and then just started like building these things out and stuff.
Yeah.
I prefer to tinker on other things these days, but that's not to say I don't like getting my hands dirty from time to time.
Well, you kind of have to, right? To make sure you're well-rounded and know the subject matter.
I'm a technical guy by nature. Like my background is technical. I've been a consultant. I've been an in-house IT person. I didn't go to product marketing school. I just learned how to communicate about the stuff that I was doing. So yeah. So I have to play with it. That's just part of the workflow for me.
So we've got a blog we're going to review. I do have a quick question for you, being that you're the VMware on Azure, Horizon integrated with Azure guy. The entitlements I get from running Azure, multi-session and OS licensing as a subscription, do all those things apply even with those extra layers like vSphere on top of Azure in place?
So are you specifically asking about like Windows 10 multi-session, like the Azure Virtual Desktop stuff that you get?
Definitely, that's the most important one to me. Yeah.
So that Azure Virtual Desktop entitlement is only valid with native Azure workloads. So you can't run Windows 10 multi-session in Horizon on Azure VMware solution just because it's running in Azure. It's still running on a vSphere platform in that regard. But that's where Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure comes in. That's a native desktop as a service platform that's running natively on Azure infrastructure. And Horizon Cloud does have the capability that the technical description is that Microsoft, our partnership for Microsoft, extends the Azure Virtual Desktop capabilities to Horizon Cloud environments. And so Horizon Cloud, working with the Horizon control plane, allows it to work with all the other Horizon environments too. And so you can use Horizon I'm saying Horizon a lot. You can use Horizon to deploy workloads in Azure, on premises, wherever. And so if you have some Windows Virtual Desktop use cases, you can have those. You can have some Horizon on premises. You can have Horizon elsewhere, and you can manage them all from that same interface. So you can use Azure Virtual Desktop with the BLAST protocol and all the other Horizon capabiliaries.
That's good. That's the most comprehensive answer I've gotten from anybody, including Microsoft at this point. But I really wanted to be yes for everything, but at least we know where it ends and where it begins.
Yeah, it's basically native Azure or not. If it's native Azure, it can use Azure Virtual Desktop, and obviously you have to have the entitlements from Microsoft and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where we draw the line.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's jump into the blog and share it with the screen share here and kind of go through what you're covering. This is the blog you wrote, right?
Yeah, well, so it's Shika middle, I think is how we say her name. Actually, I've been pronouncing it wrong for 2 years now. So Shika is the product manager for Horizon. She's senior director of product management, which means Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure rolls up to her.
Okay.
And at VMworld, we were revealing for the first time the future architecture of VMware Horizon. And so that's what this blog is. It's time to reveal the future of VMware Horizon. And so the explanation that I just gave you a few minutes ago about the differences between Horizon, which Horizons can run Azure Virtual Desktop, which ones run on premises, and so on. We have a relatively complex story to tell, and that's one of the things when I joined VMware, I was like, cool, we're going to simplify this. And I've tried to do some of that, but really what we needed to happen was some back-end changes. And that's what this is, this future of VMware Horizon. We're able to do quite a bit by having Horizon 8 on one side and Horizon Cloud on the other side and connecting them with the Horizon control plane. But now what we're going to do is we're going to begin to unify the back-end behind the scenes for all different Horizon environments everywhere. And for the moment, we're calling this our Horizon next generation hybrid DaaS architecture. And our plan is one Horizon for every Horizon environment, one platform for every Horizon environment.
One platform, one product license as well, or just one platform?
Currently, we have one product license right now. The Horizon Universal license will get you access to deploy Horizon wherever you want to. Okay. So that's on premises in the cloud. Both, you buy the license one time, you can use it anywhere. And so the problem is on premises, you have to deploy Horizon 8. And if you want to use it in Azure, that's cool, but you have two choices in Azure, right? You can deploy Horizon 8 into Azure VMware solution, or you can deploy Horizon Cloud, which is fundamentally different from a deployment perspective. It's a desktop as a service platform. You have to deploy that natively into Azure. And so, like I said, these things are managed together from the Horizon control plane, but underneath they're still different. And so by unifying the platform underneath, we're going to be able to change a lot of things about how Horizon is delivered. We're going to be able to lower costs because we're introducing what we're calling a podless infrastructure. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but just to think about it, right now we've got these, when you deploy Horizon on premises, you have to deploy a lot of components, licensing servers, databases, things like that. The pod is like the unit of desktops that can be delivered. Eric, what am I stumbling over here? Like, what's a better way to say this? I feel like I'm tripping over my words.
No,
pod farm. I don't know what
pod. I mean, cloud pods.
Pod is like the unit of desktops, right?
Yeah, this is your environment. It's a holistic little entity unto itself, and then it's managed by this remote connection. If you wanted to, you could break that pod off and use it almost independently.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's that universal portion of pulling it all together under one roof, basically.
Okay. And like
not a roof. Sorry. Management clouds, architecture. Whatever. Yeah. Or clouds.
Okay. Pods are units of scalability that can contain desktops. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, this is pods are what Horizon has been built upon for years now. And what we're going to do with this next generation architecture, which by the way, internally, we called this Project Titan. And I guarantee you, I will call this Titan throughout this podcast. So if you hear me say Titan, this is what I'm talking about.
Great.
Yeah. So what we're going to do though is we're going to thin all of that out. We call it the thin edge or podless architecture. We're going to remove a lot of those components that are necessary to deploy and maintain and pay for in a customer environment. And I can describe that more in a little bit. We're doing this with an API driven infrastructure that's going to allow for all sorts of integrations with third parties, with customer written day two management scripts with partners. to build their own services around. We're really excited about the advanced automation capabilities that we've got here, and that's also going to lead to better integration with our already hybrid and multi-cloud capabilities, as well as advanced troubleshooting capabilities and visibility into our environments that we don't have today. So this kind of, we're building it from the ground up. And so these are the kind of those are our goals as we're deploying this next generation architecture.
And will this be, maybe you're going to cover this, when will this be available?
So available, we're looking at first half of next year is for our initial release of this. I don't have any more specifics about that I can share right now. Except for I can say that we're initially going to roll this out for Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure. So those environments will this will just be like the new version of the backend for those environments, and then over time our goal is to release this for Horizon on premises to replace Horizon 8 backends at some point in time as well. That I definitely don't have any dates on. But once we're all done, it's going to be the same backend across the board.
Yeah. Okay.
So usually the next question that comes up with this is, what is thin edge and podless? And the blog goes on to explain what some of that is, but I wanted to help out. When you look at all the different components that a customer has to deploy on premises today, we're talking about things like monitoring, brokering, the image management capabilities, app volumes manager. There's app volumes has its own infrastructure components that need to be deployed. There's pod managers, databases, things like that. And over time, as we built that Horizon control plane that kind of overlays all of the different Horizon environments, we've moved some of those components up into the Horizon control plane, which I should say is a cloud service from VMware that's managed by us, deployed by us. It's just desktop virtualization management as a service. Thus far, we've added things like workspace, one identity management, pools and entitlements, image management, monitoring, brokering, things like that. But still on premises, customers still have to deploy pod managers and databases and app volumes management and things like that. And so with this next generation console, we're going to move those components up into the cloud as well. And that means that all a customer has to have on premises are a lightweight Horizon gateway appliance that contains the unified access gateway, the secure gateway for customers to access their individual environments, as well as an edge gateway, a connector basically that connects that Horizon environment up to the Horizon control plane. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
And will that, so it says Horizon Gateway Appliance. These are truly appliances that run on ESX?
In this case, they're appliances that run natively in Azure, because we're talking about replacing the backend for Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure first. So it's not specifically tied to ESX. But
it will be eventually. It'll be the same model in both.
It will. Yeah, it will run on ESX. You can think of this more like a container.
Yeah. Okay. No, good.
So by doing this, by taking this lighter weight approach, moving off some of those more beefy kind of services and putting them into the Horizon control plane, we're going to be able to increase scalability in both on-premises and cloud environments. We're replacing the concept of the pod. I'm finger quoting this for people just listening. We're replacing the concept of the pod with a Horizon edge. And that's what this edge gateway does. It connects a Horizon edge to the Horizon cloud control plane. Right. Each edge, because it has the less infrastructure in it, each edge can scale up to 20,000 sessions. Wow. I forget what that number is currently for Horizon 8, but for Horizon Cloud, we're looking at something like 2,000 sessions per pod, and I think it's maybe 15,000 per subscription. Either way,
enormous.
It's a huge number. It's difficult to compare because the backends are a little bit different too. But yeah, it's a huge number. And then if we want additional sessions from a same area, we just add another Horizon edge. Again, the logical construct here. And we get there. We actually have a beta customer that's trying this out right now that needs 35,000 sessions. And that requires or no, they need 30,000 sessions, which in Horizon Cloud requires 15 Azure subscriptions because each Azure subscription can only handle 2,000 desktops. With this next generation architecture, they only need 2 Azure subscriptions. Because in each one of those things, we can deploy 20,000 desktops.
It's enormous.
And Gabe, for the architects that may be listening at some point, and appliances and edges, gateways and edge gateways and Active Directory, of course, redundancy of at least 2 of those, or is it truly just a single one that gets it done?
Okay, so from an Azure perspective, the redundancy is built into the platform, and so Azure has its own SLAs and stuff. From a Horizon standpoint, we have currently today, you have to deploy 2 different pod managers, 2 different unified access gateways to make sure that if one goes down, the other still works. Because we're taking pod management out, customer doesn't have to worry about that. We're taking care of all of that in the Horizon control plane. And from a UAG standpoint, we're building in the intelligence into the edge connector, that Horizon Gateway appliance, to make sure that there's always like an N+1 situation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yep. For sure.
So this is a difficult story to tell without like backup slides, but actually, this is what I just described. Hopefully someday we're going to have video up, right, Andy? So people can actually see what the heck I'm talking about here. But what I just mentioned, if you want to visualize it, is the current Horizon Cloud environment today has pod managers and unified access gateways and an Azure Postgres database service that needs to be not only spun up, but deployed in a customer's environment, but the customer is actually paying for all of this as well, because these are resources running in their Azure subscription. When we deploy this next generation architecture, we're going to remove the pod managers. So now the customer doesn't have to pay for those. They're not sitting there just spinning the Azure consumption meter. And really, it's just going to be this one edge appliance that it will make sure that there's enough unified access gateways to support the workload, to support the demands on the environment. But other than that, it's going to reduce the amount of infrastructure that needs to be deployed and sitting there spinning for each user. And that's actually one of the main benefits. What's that?
Do that again. Do the animation again, because like I didn't know what to look for disappearing until.
Oh, no problem. Top blue box. So that's what we've got. We sell pod managers and a database, and really those things go away. And there's a small lightweight edge gateway that handles the connection between the Horizon Edge, the subscription, and the cloud management plane. But then all that's left is the unified access gateways that allow the secure access into the environment.
Does this replace the cloud connector?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, and that's all part of the whole plan to get things migrated over to replace Horizon 8 infrastructures and things like that. At some point, is we've got to get the cloud connectors updated or move to this as well. And so we're starting with Horizon Cloud on Azure because a lot of this stuff is already there, and we can get it deployed and we can start using it, and then building it out as time goes by.
Sorry, Andy, you were saying something?
Well, I was going to commit to making this the first video we post to correspond with the podcast, because these pictures are worth 1,000
words.
1,000 of
Well, my dry throat right now is I think I've been speaking 1,000 words too. But yeah, so this is our plan, and that's cool, Andy. If you're going to get this one out as a video, that's awesome, because I can spend a little less time talking about what's going on here. It's like switching from play-by-play on the radio to play-by-play on TV.
For those that are going to watch the video and listen like they do, like on your favorite radio podcast, your favorite, you watch it on TV and try to listen to it on the radio. That's
well, so all right. So when we talk about all the infrastructure components of this and the benefits that we think that this next generation architecture is going to bring to our customers, first and foremost is lower costs. And a typical, to understand how we're going to lower costs, it's easiest to kind of look at what the current state is and then look at the future state. Currently, Horizon is based on sites and pods, like we were stumbling around earlier. Each pod has its own pod managers, unified access gateways, databases, et cetera. And so if you want to expand or scale up, you just increase the number of pods you have. It's actually pretty easy to look at this from a cost perspective when we look at Azure, because the costs of doing this in Azure are pretty well defined. We know how much we're spending on a per hour basis. And so if we look at what the costs are in Azure, each pod in Azure is an Azure subscription. And so each pod or each subscription can host 2,000 desktops. And each pod generates about $800 a month in infrastructure consumption costs. So just to spin up the pod managers and the UAGs costs about $800 a month per 2,000 users. This is before you even access a desktop. You're spending $800 a month. And granted, if you have 2,000 VMs, that's not a huge amount of money. It's not a backbreaking amount of money. But if you have 100 VMs, that's $8 a user, right? And so this can be, it sort of washes itself out at scale, but once you start to go lower, it becomes costly. And if you actually look at an environment with that I'm showing here, I'm showing 6,000 virtual machines over 3 different Azure subscriptions equals about $2,400 a month, or 40 cents per user per month, just in infrastructure
cost. Yeah. Consumption.
Mm-hmm. So again, a pittance compared to what the actual consumption costs are, something that you wouldn't notice. And it's easy. We can demonstrate the value of this, but still you're spending $800 a month before you even fire up a desktop per pod. And so were you going to say something?
No, that sounds great.
I thought I heard something geared up.
If we were less than 2,000 on any one of those, it basically dramatically increased the cost. You have $800 for a single infrastructure, single pod, and you would have to scale up from 100 to 2,000, and any of the costs that would be consumed in that space.
Sure. If you had 2001 VMs and you had to spin up another subscription for one user, that one user cost you $800 a month in infrastructure. So
sorry, boy, you're going to have to go out back and
right. You have to wait till Bob logs off.
Yeah.
So, now, thankfully we don't run into that. But it conceivably could happen. So what we're doing though with this next generation environment is we're going to get rid of the concept of the Azure. I lost focus here. We're going to get rid of the concept of the Azure pod and introduce the concept of the Horizon Edge. And you can think of an edge as a single region in Azure. And so you would deploy a new edge in if you were going to deploy desktops from a different Azure region, or if you maxed out an edge at that 20,000 user limit in any single geo. When we introduce this thin edge, we're removing all of the stuff that was involved in deploying a pod, which cuts the cost in half. That's what we're seeing so far in all of our beta testing. That cuts the cost in half. But what's really cool is that you don't have to deploy a whole infrastructure for each subscription. You only need to deploy it for one per edge. And so instead of going from $800 to $400 per pod, we're going per subscription, we're going to $400 for an entire Horizon Edge. So now 20,000 users will cost $400.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. Now that number probably goes up because, like I said, if you're maxing out that environment, you need more unified access gateways. And so as the demand goes up, the number of UAGs goes up, and as it goes down, we'll spin down UAGs. But still, we're looking at one infrastructure that is dramatically lower in cost than what we were talking about before. Plus, and this environment that we're showing on the screen here is a 6,000 VM environment with $400 of cost. But because we have this brand new infrastructure, because we're leveraging everything via new like API native or API driven architecture, and because we have less stuff going on for the infrastructure, we're actually able to increase scalability. And so instead of having 2,000 users per Azure subscription, now we're talking 5,000 users per Azure subscription. So we went from $400 for, what was that, 2,000 users?
Or multiples of 2,000 users.
Yeah, for multiples of 2,000 users. Now we're talking about $400 for multiples of 5,000 up to 20,000. And in these examples that we have on the screen, we were saying it was going to cost $2,400 a month to support 6,000 VMs over 3 subscriptions. Now we say then that same amount of resources, we're able to support 15,000 users, and we're able to do it for $400 a month. And so now our per user per month cost went from 40 cents per user per month to 2.6 cents per user per month. And so Gabe, that's ridiculous scalability compared to what we were able to do before.
And that's factoring in like the gateways for managing the protocol throughput and the registrations and things that have to happen to make this all work. These aren't thin provisioned appliances. This is ones that can handle these types of workloads still around the $400 mark.
You're muted.
Still muted.
At the Zoom level.
He said I was muted. Sorry, I didn't. It was really good what I said, but I forgot. No, okay. So, so that cost is napkin math. We know that we know that we cut the cost in half, or we expect that we're gonna cut the cost in half. And that so we're going with that $400 a month here for an entire edge. We know that we have one set of Horizon gateway infrastructure to deploy for an entire edge versus a per pod deployment. Where the number will go up is at usage. So if all 20,000 or say 15,000 VMs are maxed out here, and we have to have a few different UAGs, unified access gateways fired up, that cost is going to go up some, but it's not going to go up to outrageous cost like we had before. It'll still cost less than it did before.
Right.
Yeah, considerably. Now, does that mean other portions of infrastructure change as well? Because you got the UAGs that are going to be spinning up to accommodate more users. What about connection servers and so forth?
So all of that stuff is handled back in the Horizon control plane. So
above, therefore, it's not really part of the footprint on the Azure side.
Exactly. Gotcha. And I don't know, I'm scanning to see if I have a slide here that will depict that, but I'm getting down into the product management level stuff here, but here we go. So here's, multiple sites and edges and blah, blah, blah. But basically all of those components, the connection servers and pod managers and things like that, the functionality of those things has been moved up into the Horizon control plane. And that means that all of this capacity, all of these appliances here are just communicating to the control plane. Users are also communicating to the control plane. And so user hits the universal broker interface, and they give them their information. The universal broker intelligently routes the user to wherever the workload happens to be, and then gets out of the way, right? So then the user speaks to the UAG in that specific location, and they're routed to their desktops they don't have to go through the control
through
plane.
That whole process again. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So yeah, there's a lot going on this slide here, but hopefully that answers that question. Actually, here, this one would have been good.
So Gabe, can you go back to the last one real quick?
Sure.
The last slide. Well, you can do it on this one too. So it looks like the Universal Access Gateway and the Horizon Edge Gateway, that's 2 different appliances that work together, or is it one appliance running 2 services?
One appliance, 2 services.
Okay, good. That's part of the cost savings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I think you meant this is a question more for product managers than anything. So I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but think of these as containers, and we will spin up additional resources as needed automatically, additional instances of edge gateways or UAGs. So as needed based on demands. But this is all done by VMware automatically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you just point it to where you need those containers spun up and it happens.
Yeah, so if we look at the different providers, just look at one of these things here. Let me see. Let me turn on the pen. So if we just look at one of these boxes, because this here is showing a multi-site deployment. If you just look at one of these, you've got individual providers set up within a single edge or a single region. So imagine like Azure West, right? Your first thing that you deploy in that Azure West edge is going to be your primary provider. And that has not just your workload capacity, the virtual desktops and apps and images and things like that themselves, it's also going to have this connective Horizon Gateway appliance that connects back to the Horizon control plane. And then every provider you have after that doesn't need to have a new gateway appliance. It just has its own capacity. It's just its own, virtual desktops and application capacity. So hopefully that answers.
And what you mean by secondary provider? What is secondary provider, primary provider? Is this in the same cloud, or is this an on-premise solution versus another cloud or whatever else?
So in this situation, this is in the same region. Let me find out. I have other slides to help this out here. Let me give you the example of that beta customer that I was talking about that had 30,000 virtual machines in Horizon Cloud on Azure today.
Nice.
Today, that is 15 pods in Horizon Cloud on Azure, each with 2,000 VMs, each costing $800 a month for the infrastructure, or around that. That's also a ballpark guess. So that's a complicated environment there that we can do better with, and that's what the next generation architecture is doing. So this is a single Azure region, and there are 2 Horizon edges deployed in that region. And because we have that 20,000 user limit, and so we need 20,000 users here, and we need to put the rest of them over here. So this region probably only has 10,000 in it. So each Horizon edge resides in a Azure location, region. You can have multiple edges in a region. You can put one edge in US West and another edge in, a London location or whatever. It's just that each edge that you deploy requires its own infrastructure. Does that help? We get complicated here when with
totally
me talking about it. Okay.
I mean, it's the key to it is your infrastructure is always supporting something. But with that last slide, you said, here's your desktops and information, but you don't need to have that appliance that's doing the negotiations.
Correct. That's just to do the handoff. That's there.
That's right. As soon as the handoff is done, the infrastructure takes over. You have directly connected to a virtual desktop, and you start working with that virtual desktop.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. In fact, is that here? Yeah. So if you see this one here, so this is part of the improved visibility and troubleshooting point that I was trying to drive home, but I think we're circling around it anyway. If you look here inside the Horizon Universal Control Plane, we have brokering, right? We have pod managers and database and monitoring and things like that. So a user that's sitting outside the environment is going to connect to the brokering via the Horizon Control Plane. And then the broker is going to say, hey, user, you need to go connect to this Horizon edge, wherever it happens to be, and access your desktop there. And then the user will connect that way. So, well, I should say they connect this way. So the connection doesn't ever go through the control plane.
Yeah, this is a reverse proxy of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, just quick time check. This is good. Gabe, what do we want to make sure we get a chance to go over between the next couple minutes as we start to wrap up?
Well, let's see. I've hit every slide I think I wanted to, but out of order.
That's the best way. It's always the best way.
You know what? That means we're having a conversation around it. But here's what I'd like to land on, because I think we've been circling a lot of things, and we've been going off into areas that I am not as great at talking about as, say, a product manager would be, especially at this stage of the game. What this is going to do is this is going to simplify the way that Horizon is deployed across all the different places where Horizon can be deployed. Our ultimate goal here is to have one Horizon platform, no matter where that user happens to be. So we don't have to have that conversation of, okay, yeah, we have this capability, but you have to deploy it in Horizon 8, or yeah, we have this, but you have to deploy it in Horizon on Azure, Horizon Cloud on Azure. Azure Virtual Desktop is a really good, you have to deploy a different product in Azure. Azure Virtual Desktop is a good example of that. Right now, if a customer wants to use Azure Virtual Desktop, we have to say, hey, you have to use Horizon Cloud to do that, which has been great so far. However, it's still a different Horizon what the customer's used to having. And so there's that conversation that has to be had still. That does connect up to the Horizon control plane. And so once a customer is used to that, they can use all their different environments, but it's still a separate Horizon code base. It's not exactly what they were used to using. Once we're done with this, it's going to be one Horizon for all environments. And I think that's really important. Plus, we're making life easier for admins. We're going to take away the pod managers. So now that represents, Eric, what, 2, 3, how many pod managers are deployed in a Horizon 8 deployment these days?
Well, it just depends on the pods, but yeah, it really scales according to what the pods are.
That's true, because right, every pod you have pod managers, and so you probably got at least 2 per pod, right?
Yeah.
And so
resiliency.
So if you've got multiple pods, you've got multiple pods times 2 of pod managers, and with this, I almost said Titan, with this next generation platform, we're going to remove that. You won't have to manage and monitor and maintain those pod managers or the database servers or the app volumes management servers, that kind of stuff. All of that's coming off your plate as an admin, moving into the Horizon control plane where VMware is going to take care of it. And that means that even more so as an admin, you're only going to have to care about those desktops and applications. So
the way it should be.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it easier. And then, factor in what we've been talking about with app volumes and DEM over the years. App volumes nowadays is package once, deploy anywhere. That is built into this as well. And so users or admins will have a better application management experience. DEM is going to be included with this still. And so admins will have the ability to centralize the user environment management and so on of the user environments. All of this stuff is just proceeding closer and closer and closer to this vision of, let us take care of all of that hard stuff. You don't have to deploy that. All you have to do is, we'll give you the knobs and dials that you can use. And, you don't have to manage any of the underlying infrastructure for that.
Yeah. Choose a cloud, choose on-premise, choose any one of those. The deployment is relatively the same for each one of those, and it all connects up to that cloud broker, or not the cloud broker, but the cloud control plane above it.
Yeah. Well, and automation too. I should land on that. We haven't spent really any time talking about it, but I wanted to bring that up too. Is we're building this from the ground up to use APIs, and so that's going to help us integrate better with other VMware, EUC technologies, not even EUC, just other VMware technologies. But it's also going to help third-party tools, think ticketing, monitoring, things like that, integrate better with us. It's going to help customers be able to build out their own day 2 management tools, and it's going to help partners be able to develop services, both for management services or to build out their own platforms based upon this next gen architecture. And so, these days it's probing around looking for APIs or waiting for VMware to release APIs. That doesn't happen with this. Those APIs are going to be available for everybody from day one.
So Gabe, it starts off with Horizon on Azure, right? Or Horizon for Azure. That's number 1.
Yep. Hang on, I got that one.
Got it.
There we go. So yeah, it starts off with, my goodness, hang on a second. Too much talking, not enough water. Yeah, so our expected release order, this is as generic as I could possibly make it. This is our next generation architecture. For now, eventually it'll become the backend for Horizon Cloud, and then eventually after that, it'll become the backend for all of VMware Horizon. We have let's see, via.vmware.com/Horizon Next Gen info. Those words have to be capitalized if you're just listening to this. So capital H Horizon, capital N next. You know what? I'll just make another one that's all lowercase. Via.vmware.com/Horizon Next Gen info. That will take you to a page you can sign up for more, learn about upcoming betas, release information, features, things like that. It'll just add you to a mailing list and you'll get updates on that. And there are sessions from VMworld that go into way more detail about how all this works how pods go away and how they're replaced, and more details into each one of those areas that we sort of touched on here. And there's the aforementioned blog that kind of was the nexus of this whole conversation, or that got this whole conversation started, that you can find in the VMware EUC blogs too.
Yeah. Now, guys, this is great. This is what VMware needs to do to make it simpler. As Gabe started off with, across the different platforms that you're trying to work with. This is it's good to see VMware going in this direction.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's our goal. It's not the easiest story to tell, but it's something that has to happen. And we've got to change the way that we've been doing things a little bit to make that happen. Not that the ways that we were doing things were bad. I mean, it's the way desktop virtualization has been done sort of across the board for all these years, but it's time to modernize that. And so we're going to take everything that we do that's awesome today, we're going to make it better.
Yeah. Simplify, compress, and then also enable IoT and so forth is also a very big part of that. But anyway, go ahead, Andy.
Well, I was gonna wrap us up, guys. This is great, and thanks for jumping on to do this. We'll keep people posted as it evolves.
Cool.
Again, great to see VMware investing in making the platform extremely universal for multi-cloud as well as on premises.
Yeah, well, it's a very exciting time over here. So yeah, it's fun to do this. So anytime you want to talk more, have me on.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And then same, if you have things you want to cover like this, definitely let us know. We'll make it happen on the podcast. And again, I'll get this one put on the XenTegra YouTube channel very first one.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for doing this, and we'll record another one later.
All right, cheers.